Ever stumble upon a sitcom so strange, you wonder how it ever made it past the pilot? The 1960s were a wild mix of laughter, color, and complete confusion on television. Networks were throwing ideas at the wall, some stuck, but many crashed and burned faster than you can say. Primetime disaster. From talking cars to cavemen astronauts, let's rewind to the shows that vanished faster than their laugh tracks. You're in the Picture, 1961. Some shows fail quietly. Others implode so fast, even the host apologizes on live television. You're in the Picture did exactly that. In January of 1961, CBS premiered a brand new game show hosted by comedy legend Jackie Gleason. The idea? Celebrities would stick their heads through cutout illustrations and guess what scene they were part of. Yes, literally. That was it. The audience was confused. The critics were merciless, and the laughter was nowhere to be found. The debut was such a train wreck that Gleason didn't even try to continue. The following week, instead of airing another episode, he went on air and delivered a full apology. He called it a mistake and thanked viewers for their patience. CBS tried to salvage the time slot by turning it into a talk show, but the damage was already done. It became one of the shortest-lived television programs in history, a one-episode wonder that's still remembered by TV historians for all the wrong reasons. You're in the Picture proved that not every star could turn confusion into comedy. In the end, Gleason's humility outshined the show itself, cementing it as an unforgettable and hilariously regrettable moment in TV history. The Tammy Grimes Show, 1966. When ABC signed Broadway darling Tammy Grimes, executives thought they had struck gold. She was charming, witty, and fresh off a Tony Award win. So they handed her a sitcom built entirely around her eccentric energy. In the Tammy Grimes Show, she played a glamorous heiress who ignored her fortune to chase adventures. Sounds fun, right? Unfortunately, viewers didn't agree. The scripts were flat, the jokes fizzled, and Grimes's theatrical flair clashed with the homey vibe that television audiences were used to. Despite massive promotion and primetime billing, the series was canceled after just 4 weeks. 4 episodes and out. Critics called it miscast, misguided, and miscalculated. The failure was so abrupt that Grimes later joked she barely had time to memorize her character's lines before the plug was pulled. What makes this one especially fascinating is how much ABC believed in it. They spent heavily on marketing, betting Tammy could carry the network's comedy slate into the next decade. Instead, it became a cautionary tale of what happens when stage charisma doesn't translate to the small screen. The Tammy Grimes Show became a bright, brief spark in television history, a flash that burned out before it even had a chance to glow. My Mother, The Car, 1965 to 1966. Imagine pitching this. A man's late mother is reincarnated as his talking car. Somehow, NBC said yes. My Mother, The Car starred Jerry Van Dyke as a mild-mannered lawyer who buys an antique automobile only to discover that his mother's spirit lives inside it. Through the car's radio, she gives him advice, nags him about his love life, and basically drives him crazy. It was intended to be heartwarming and surreal. It was mostly just confusing. Audiences found the concept absurd, even by the anything-goes standards of the 1960s. The idea of a talking car wasn't the issue, it was the tone. The show couldn't decide if it was sentimental family comedy or outlandish fantasy. Critics shredded it on both fronts. NBC still ran a full season of 30 episodes, hoping it might find its footing, but it never did. Decades later, it remains a pop culture punchline, often topping lists of worst TV shows ever made. Yet, in a strange way, My Mother, The Car was ahead of its time. It tried to blend family warmth with absurdism long before shows like ALF or Small Wonder made it fashionable. It just didn't have the tools or the timing to make it work. The Ugliest Girl in Town, 1968 to 1969. Cross-dressing comedies weren't new to Hollywood, but The Ugliest Girl in Town took the concept to another level and paid the price. In this ill-fated ABC sitcom, Peter Kastner played Tim O'Connor, a struggling talent agent who accidentally becomes a fashion model in London, while disguised as a woman. The joke was that he was so convincing he couldn't escape the role. Cue endless identity mix-ups, wig changes, and awkward gags. The series tried to cash in on the swinging mod culture of the late 60s, mixing Beatles-inspired music, colorful sets, and campy British humor. But audiences were bewildered. Critics called it tasteless and tone-deaf, and viewers tuned out faster than you can say fashion faux pas. After just 20 episodes, the show disappeared without ceremony. It was neither funny nor charming enough to work as satire, and too bizarre to succeed as farce. ABC quietly buried it, hoping people would forget it ever existed. Today, The Ugliest Girl in Town survives only in TV trivia circles as a warning, Trying too hard to be trendy can age a show overnight. It's proof that even a mod makeover can't save a bad idea from collapsing under its own wigs and one-liners. It's About Time, 1966 to 1967. If you think cavemen and astronauts sound like an odd mix, you'd be right. It's About Time proved just how wrong a clever idea can go. Created by Sherwood Schwartz, the mind behind Gilligan's Island, this CBS sitcom followed two astronauts who accidentally travel back to the Stone Age. There, they try to survive among cavemen, inventing fire, fumbling with clubs, and cracking. Prehistoric jokes. The theme song was catchy, the sets were colorful, and the premise was ambitious. But after a few episodes, it was clear the novelty was wearing thin. The slapstick routines grew repetitive, and viewers lost interest fast. Desperate to save it, Schwartz flipped the concept mid-season, bringing the cavemen to modern-day America instead. It didn't help. Ratings continued to plummet, and the series ended after just 26 episodes. Still, It's About Time has a strange cult following today. Some fans appreciate its daring absurdity, while others love it purely for how spectacularly it failed. It's a relic of a creative era when networks would literally greenlight anything, especially if it rhymed with Gilligan's Island. In the end, the show's title turned out to be prophetic. Because after one chaotic season, it really was about time to end it. The Phyllis Diller Show, 1966 to 1967. Few comedians had a personality as larger than life as Phyllis Diller. So when ABC decided to build a sitcom around her, the network was convinced it had a guaranteed hit. Instead, The Phyllis Diller Show, originally titled The Pruitts of Southampton, became a masterclass in how not to write for a comedy legend. The series followed Diller as Phyllis Pruitt, a wealthy socialite secretly broke but pretending to live large to fool her high society friends. On paper, it sounded like a fun, satirical twist on upper-class life, but the jokes never landed. The scripts were weak, the pacing was clumsy, and Diller's trademark wild energy didn't mesh with the stiff, formulaic sitcom style. ABC tried desperately to save it. Halfway through, they rebranded it The Phyllis Diller Show, reshuffled the cast, and adjusted the tone, but by then, the audience was gone. Critics dismissed it as a laughless experiment, and by the spring of 1967, it was canceled after just one season. Despite the failure, Phyllis herself remained gracious. She joked that at least her wigs got more screen time than her lines. Today, the series is remembered as one of television's most ambitious misfires, a reminder that even a brilliant comic can't rescue a show without a spark. Camp Runamuck, 1965 to 1966. If you grew up on summer camp comedies like Meatballs or Salute Your Shorts, then Camp Runamuck might sound like the original. Unfortunately, it wasn't nearly as fun as the name promised. Premiering on NBC in the mid-1960s, the series centered on the rivalry between two camps, one for boys, one for girls, and the chaotic hijinks that ensued. Think slapstick pranks, over-the-top counselors, and a whole lot of pie-in-the-face humor. The show tried to capture the youthful energy of summer, but forgot one key ingredient: actual comedy that worked for adults too. Critics found it juvenile, the writing paper thin, and the acting exaggerated even by sitcom standards. Younger viewers found it mildly amusing, but older audiences tuned out almost immediately. NBC pushed hard for it to become a family favorite, but after one season, the laughter died down, and so did the ratings. Camp Runamuck didn't just fade, it vanished. By 1966, it was gone from schedules entirely. Today, it stands as a forgotten footnote in the long line of fun idea, bad execution comedies. Still, there's something charming about its attempt to bottle summer chaos, even if the lid never stayed on. The Good Guys, 1968 to 1970. Sometimes even good intentions can't save a sitcom from mediocrity. The Good Guys starred Bob Denver. Yes, Gilligan himself, as a bumbling cab driver named Rufus Butterworth, who partners with his friend Burt Gramus, played by Herb Edelman, to open a diner. CBS banked on Denver's star power, hoping lightning would strike twice. It didn't. The chemistry between the leads was fine, but the writing was stuck in neutral. The show leaned too heavily on slapstick and sitcom cliches, recycling gags about broken stoves, angry customers, and botched deliveries. Even with strong guest stars and a primetime slot, viewers didn't bite. Critics described it as pleasant but pointless, and by the second season, ratings had stalled completely. After 2 short seasons, CBS pulled the plug. The Good Guys became a textbook example of how networks tried and failed to bottle the magic of earlier hits by repeating the same formula. Denver deserved better, but at least he got to trade his diner apron for Dusty's trail. A few years later, another noble misfire. Occasional Wife, 1966 to 1967. Sometimes all you need for a good sitcom is one great gimmick. But in Occasional Wife, the gimmick ran out of gas almost instantly. The premise was pure 60s absurdity. A single man named Peter Christopher wanted to move up in his company, but his boss only promoted married men. So he convinces a neighbor, Greta Patterson, to pretend to be his wife just occasionally, for show. Cue endless misunderstandings, close calls, and nosy co-workers. At first, audiences loved the idea. It was cheeky and lighthearted, with a memorable theme song and a funny man-in-the-middle narrator breaking the fourth wall. But week after week, the same jokes played out, Peter scrambling to hide the truth, Greta saving the day, someone nearly discovering their secret. By the 10th episode, it was déjà vu with a laugh track. Critics called it a one-joke wonder, and viewers soon agreed. NBC canceled the show after a single season of 30 episodes. Still, Occasional Wife has its defenders. It's bright, harmless, and oddly charming in a vintage way. But it stands as proof that even the cleverest setups need real heart to last beyond the honeymoon phase, especially a fake one. Pistols and Petticoats, 1966 to 1967. By the mid-1960s, westerns were fading fast, but CBS decided to take one last shot with Pistols and Petticoats, a sitcom about a family of gun-toting women running a saloon and fighting outlaws in a small frontier town. It starred the legendary Ann Sheridan as the strong-willed matriarch, combining humor with shootouts and slapstick. The tone swung between Gunsmoke and the Beverly Hillbillies, hoping to please both fans of cowboy action and family comedy. It didn't work. While the idea of an all-female Western family was ahead of its time, the writing couldn't decide whether to play it for parody or sincerity. Critics were baffled. Was it spoofing Westerns or celebrating them? The confusion kept audiences from connecting. Tragically, Sheridan's death during the show's run dealt another blow, forcing producers to wrap the series abruptly after just 26 episodes. Today, Pistols and Petticoats is mostly remembered by television historians as an odd, uneven experiment, one that tried to bring a fresh perspective to a fading genre, but ended up as a relic of both. Its legacy, proof that even bold ideas need sharper direction to hit their mark. The Double Life of Henry Phyfe, 1966. Imagine a timid accountant suddenly mistaken for a secret agent and having to play along. That was the setup for ABC's The Double Life of Henry Phyfe, a spy spoof that tried to ride the coattails of Get Smart and The Man from UNCLE. Unfortunately, it never got off the ground. Alan Young, best known as the kind-hearted owner from Mr. Ed, starred as Henry Phyfe, a mild-mannered everyman, recruited by a top-secret agency after a real spy, his exact double, is killed in action. Week after week, Henry bungled through missions, dodged bad guys, and somehow saved the day despite himself. The premise had promise, but the humor was too tame, and the pacing sluggish. By the time audiences caught on, the spy craze was already cooling. Critics praised Young's charm, but called the scripts flat-footed and overly polite. ABC canceled the series after just 17 episodes, leaving Henry's double life permanently on pause. Today, it's remembered as a gentle, well-meaning flop, proof that sometimes even spies need a better cover story. Rango, 1967. Before Tim Conway became a comedy legend on The Carol Burnett Show, he starred in one of the strangest Western sitcoms ever made, Rango. This short-lived ABC series followed Conway as a hopelessly clumsy deputy sheriff in a dusty frontier town called New Prospect. Every week, he tried to prove himself to his unimpressed boss, the sheriff, while somehow making every situation worse. Imagine Barney Fife from The Andy Griffith Show, transported to the Wild West, and you'll get the idea. Conway's natural gift for physical comedy shone through, but even his charm couldn't rescue the messy writing. The jokes were repetitive, the pacing uneven, and the tone uncertain. Was it parody, slapstick, or something else entirely? The show never decided. Critics said Rango felt like a sketch stretched past its limit. Viewers agreed. Ratings collapsed after just a few episodes, and the series was quietly pulled from the air after 17 weeks. Ironically, Conway's failure here paved the way for his later success. He proved he could carry a show, just not this one. Rango remains an odd footnote in his career, a dusty detour on the road to television greatness. The Jean Arthur Show, 1966. When classic Hollywood actress Jean Arthur finally agreed to star in a sitcom, CBS thought it had a guaranteed hit. Arthur had decades of film stardom behind her, from screwball comedies to romantic dramas. But The Jean Arthur Show, yes, spelled Jean in the title, proved that even legends can stumble on the small screen. Arthur played Patricia Marshall, a refined lawyer balancing work, friends, and modern life. The concept tried to blend sophistication with gentle humor, like a classier cousin to the Dick Van Dyke Show. Unfortunately, it didn't have the same magic. Arthur's natural charm was still there, but she seemed out of step with the show's stiff direction and awkward pacing. The writing never gave her room to shine. Each episode felt like a polite tea party when audiences wanted something with fizz. Worse yet, Arthur herself reportedly disliked the television grind and found the sitcom format restrictive. The tension showed. After just a handful of episodes, CBS canceled the series before it could find its rhythm. Today, The Jean Arthur Show stands as a rare misfire for one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses. It's a reminder that charisma can't save weak material, and that sometimes even the brightest stars fade under fluorescent studio lights. The Bing Crosby Show, 1964 to 1965. When Bing Crosby moved from movie musicals to television, everyone expected pure gold. The man had charm, voice, and an audience that adored him. But the Bing Crosby Show proved that even a legend can't coast on charisma alone. The sitcom cast Crosby as Bing Collins, a college professor juggling career, family, and fatherhood. It was a comfortable setup domestic comedy with a wholesome edge, but comfortable quickly turned to forgettable. Critics said the show lacked energy, the jokes felt dated, the pacing sluggish, and the plots played out like leftover scripts from earlier decades. Crosby himself seemed only mildly interested, delivering lines with his trademark ease, but none of the spark that had made him a film icon. CBS gave it one full season before pulling the plug in 1965. Fans expected a mix of music and comedy, but the show offered little of either. It wasn't bad enough to be infamous, it was worse. It was dull. Still, The Bing Crosby Show remains fascinating as a cultural time capsule. It marked the twilight of the crooner era and the growing pains of television trying to adapt silver screen giants to living room entertainment. Crosby's grace endured, but his sitcom didn't. The Cara Williams Show, 1964 to 1965. Some stars seem made for television. Cara Williams was one of them. She was charming, quick-witted, and already beloved from film and guest appearances. So, CBS built The Cara Williams Show around her, hoping to create the next great romantic comedy. Instead, they got a short-lived curiosity that fizzled faster than champagne on a hot day. Williams played a spirited office worker who secretly marries her coworker, despite their company's strict no-employee dating policy. The show's humor revolved around the pair keeping their marriage hidden from their boss, leading to endless comic misunderstandings and close calls. It had promise, and Cara herself was delightful, but the scripts leaned too heavily on one gag, the same near discoveries over and over. Critics called it charming but stale. Viewers agreed, and despite its energetic cast, the ratings dropped. After just one season of 30 episodes, the series was quietly canceled. In hindsight, The Cara Williams Show wasn't a disaster. It was simply ordinary in an era that demanded standout hits. Surrounded by television giants like Bewitched and The Dick Van Dyke Show, it never had a chance to shine. Still, it showcased a performer who deserved better material and gave us one more fascinating relic from television's most experimental decade. So, there you have it, 15 sitcoms that aimed for laughs and landed in history's dustbin instead. The 1960s were a playground for creativity, but not every experiment was built to last. Some shows were ahead of their time, others just out of tune. Which of these forgotten flops do you think deserves a second look? Drop your pick in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and let's keep digging through television's most spectacular misfires.